Today, I want to talk about something that I think is sitting underneath almost every single hard family conversation during wedding planning. This is not about how to handle difficult people or lists of things to say to your mother-in-law. It's about something that I think is deeper, that once you see it, I really do think you cannot unsee it. We are going to talk about unspoken expectation, specifically the ones that nobody says out loud up until the decisions have to be made. And why the conflict that you have been experiencing with your partners, your parents, and anybody who has an opinion about your wedding is probably not about what they said it was about. I'm also going to give you some frameworks, 3 questions that you can bring into any hard conversation during the planning that will change how you go into it. I recently planned my wedding. It was a destination wedding, bride 2025. It was a 1.5 year endeavor that involved so many moving pieces, made me learn so many things about myself, my partner, my family, his family. We have a multicultural family now. And it really teaches me so much about navigating all those difficult dynamics, really how to identify things that sometimes people just don't have the language for it. I had to sit with all of this conversation, with all of this unspoken expectation, try to make sense of everything that actually happened afterward. This episode is one I really want to make because I keep seeing the same question everywhere I go, like Reddit, Instagram, TikTok. Basically, like, how do I deal with pressure from the external of the couple without burning bridges? And I think before we can answer that, we need to back all the way up. Let's get into it. Somewhere right now, someone who loves you had a version of your wedding that is playing in their head. They have been building it for a while. Maybe since you were little, or maybe since you brought your partner home. They know who is there. They know what role they play. They know what it feels like. Unfortunately, I genuinely think they never ask if that version belongs to you. And you will never know it exists until it collides with your version. That collision looks like that comment that lands wrong, the request that feels more tedious than what it should, the conversation that is supposed to be about the guest list somehow turns into everything else. Here's what I think actually happened in that moment. It's not about the guest list. Someone offering help to pay might not just be offering help to pay. Your parent might be asking for 10 extra people in your guest list of someone you barely knew, of their childhood best friends that they never really keep in touch with, or worse, their colleague. Your in-law might be pushing for a tradition that just doesn't make sense financially. And what you don't know is that maybe they're not just pushing an extra 10 people, or they're not just pushing a tradition. What they might be actually asking is, do I still matter to you? What role do I get now? Is there a place for me in this new life that you're building? And here's the thing that I keep coming back to. Most wedding conflict is not about the decision in front of you. It is about the expectations nobody named before the decision have to be made. If you have been listening to my other episodes, you know that the last couple of episodes live inside the couple. Communication, conflict, building your map, building a shared language with your partner. Today, we're going to step outside because no matter how solid your team is, your wedding, fortunately, does not happen in a vacuum. Other people are there. Other people have feelings about it. And some of those people loves you enough to make the planning process significantly more complicated. I think oftentimes we kind of skip to how to have hard conversation with my family or how to set boundaries and limit with my family. That is very useful. I am going to discuss it on later episodes. I think if we go straight to there, we kind of skip a step because a limit without understanding expectation underneath it can sound like a simple rejection. And most of the time, that's not what you mean at all. So before we talk about what to do, I want to talk about what is actually happening. I found that, well, it wasn't me who found it, but relationship researchers have found that nearly 63% of recurring arguments do not stem from the issues on the surface. They stem from unmet expectation that has never been spoken out loud before. When it comes to weddings specifically, for many families and many culture, you might be able to relate. A wedding is not just merely a day to celebrate the couple. It is a way to express family identity, cultural legacy, values, and belonging. That is a lot of weight to carry around for a conversation about seating chart. And I think that's the part that we don't talk about enough. We talk about seating chart, we talk about guest lists, we talk about money, and the in-laws and the opinions, but we do not often talk about the fact that underneath all of the difficult conversation you are going to have during this process, there is an expectation that nobody named. Yours, theirs, maybe both. Before I go any further, I need to say something and I want to mean it. Not all family pressure is bad. Not every opinion is manipulation. Not every parent who want to get involved is trying to control you. I think we have to hold that because it's so easy, especially when you're overwhelmed and you're already stretched thin, trying to make hundreds of decisions, to hear an opinion and immediately feels like it's an attack. Sometimes it's not. Sometimes people are just clumsy with their love. They want to help, but they might not know how to without becoming so loud. Sometimes they're scared and they don't know that they're scared. Sometimes, and this is what gets me the most, they have been carrying a version of your wedding in their head for years, yet they forget to ask you if that version belongs to you as well. It's not malice, that is just a very human thing to do. So I think we can also hold into that. When we can stay curious about where someone's pressure is actually come from, rather than like immediately bracing against it, the whole dynamic shift. You are no longer in a standoff, you're in conversation. There's actually a concept in psychology that I learned very recently called family script. It's the idea that every family has a set of unspoken rules, roles, and expectation that has been passed down and rehearsed across generation without anyone realizing it. I find it so fascinating and I want to give it its own episode because it deserves the space. But for now, just know this. The people showing up at your wedding planning process, they don't just show up as themselves. They're showing up as everything that their family has ever taught them about what or how a wedding is supposed to mean. When you see it that way, the conversation gets a little more tender, a little less like a battle, and a little more like two stories trying to find a way to live in the same room. That is what we're really navigating. Let me tell you my story. Nick and I, we have decided from the very beginning that we're going to pay for our own wedding, precisely because of this. We don't want too many opinions in the planning process, especially because I have difficulty trying to make decision as it is already. I am the type of girl who sometimes make things bigger than what it is in my head, and I feel like if I get it wrong, like something's gonna happen. So we decided to save, to work our ass off, to make it happen. That's actually so much harder on my mom. She came to me multiple times asking if she can help with anything, if she can help pay for something, even though she was not in the best financial situation. I was pretty firm that we don't want any help. We want to do this ourselves. And if we do need help, like later on, we will figure out, we will come to you. She feels guilty for not being able to contribute for the wedding. Sometimes what I hear is, oh, she just want to take over the wedding. She wants to be able to help because she want to have a say in the wedding. She wants to take over the guest list. She did come and told me that she wanted to invite some people, and it was a whole thing. But really, underneath that request and that guilt, what she actually be thinking, and maybe what your parents might be thinking as well, is that I have imagined this day since 4, 5, 6, I don't know, 10 years ago. And I always see this person there. I always think this is a family milestone, not just a couple milestones. Or if your parents help you with your wedding, they might be thinking, oh, I thought because I was helping, I could share this with my people. Or even just sometimes I thought my role would be more important than this. Sadly, none of that gets said. What gets said is, can I invite 10 more people? Or what about this person? You have to invite them. What happened next is just negotiation about numbers. When the real conversation about role, about belonging, about what this day means for them as well, never actually happened. So the parent who really want to get involved, it might not even be about the wedding. The wedding is just the vehicles that they found to meet the need that goes much deeper than that. Like my mom, who wants really badly to contribute financially to our wedding, she actually needs to feel like she can still take care of me, even as she watched me build this new life. Let's say your dad, who keeps inserting himself into decisions, might need to feel like he still matters, like you can come to him, like he is not being left behind. And whoever in your family member is fighting for tradition, a dress, a ritual, specific food, might need to feel like the family that they built means something, that you are not quietly telling them you are done with where you come from. None of this means you have to say yes, but it changes the conversation entirely when you can see the need underneath the ask. Psychologists describe what they call family script. It's unspoken behavioral pattern and role assignments that form over years of family life, long before you get engaged. These scripts do not disappear on your engagement party. They show up at venue tour. They show up in conversation about the guest list. They show up every time someone feels like their role in your life is being renegotiated without their consent. The engagement period is actually one of the highest activation moments for this pattern because it triggers what researchers call role renegotiation. It's basically when every single family member has to figure out who they are now that the family structure is changing. Your parents move from being the primary figures to the secondary ones. The child who always come home for the holiday is now building a home of their own. For a parent, this is not just a happy milestone. It's a quiet loss. And the way that the loss shows up, because most people do not have the language for it, is through requests. The request is the only vehicle they found for a feeling they cannot name. So, what do you actually do with this? I want to offer you something practical. Not a list of script for difficult conversation. I just have 3 questions. And I think if you can hold this before any hard conversation with your family, you will go in with so much more clarity. The first question: what is being asked? This is the feasible request, the thing on the surface. Just name it plainly without layering any meaning behind it. Can we invite these people? Can we contribute to the wedding? Can you wear this? Can we do this tradition? Can we have a say in food? What is the literal ask? The second question: what is being assumed? This is the part that nobody says out loud. And this is where everything lives. If we're paying, we get input. If we are family, we get a seat at the table. If this tradition matters to us, it should matter to you. If you reject this, you are rejecting us. If we help, you will be grateful in the way that we expect. These assumptions are not always unreasonable. Some of them are even understandable, but they are infeasible. And infeasible expectation cause the most damage. Not because they're malicious, but because neither side knows they're operating from a completely different assumption about what these interactions means. The third question is, what is actually yours to decide? This is where you and your partner come in, not to shut other people out, but as 2 people who already figure out what they can offer and what they cannot. That looks like this is where we would love to have your input, and this is where we are keeping the decision between the 2 of us. This is what we are willing to work with, and this is what we cannot move on. So, for example, we specifically told Nick's parent that they can help out with the family brunch. They can help out with the Sunday barbecue party. It was an after party after the wedding where we invited the guests back into the villa that we were staying in, and we kind of have a chill pool and barbecue party day. The only thing that they need to figure out is just the food. We just need their help to figure out what we're going to serve to these people on Sunday. And that is because we don't really care about having control over the food that we serve for that specific day. At that point, we just want to relax. We think that the villa on its own is going to be fun for people. As long as there is food and water, people don't get hungry, then everything is going to be okay. So we leave it up to them to figure out where, which, what, when, as long as the food show up. The difference between this and a generic approach is that you're not just drawing a line, you are naming what is on each side of it. That is a complete different conversation. It is one that I feel like leaves room for the relationship. And next up, I want to touch a little bit on financial contribution, because I know it comes up constantly and I see it everywhere in the corner of internet. Here's the most important thing I can say about it. Money is another example of unspoken expectation. It is not the whole story, but it is a potent one, because financial contribution is the most concrete way for a family to feel like they have bought a role in your wedding. And unless that dynamic is named, unless you sit down before the money moves and ask, what does contributing to this means to you? And what does that mean to us? You will find out the expectation much later, when it is much harder to untangle. If accepting financial help has to be on the table, do one thing first. Get clear on your non-negotiable as a couple before money conversations happen. Because once money have moved, the expectation has already starting to form, whether it was named or not. If the expectation attached to the contribution bumps into something that you cannot compromise on, that does not automatically means no. It means you go one layer deeper. You ask what that expectation really means to them. Sometimes you find out that you are actually aligned. Sometimes you find you're not. But either way, you finally are having a real conversation. One last thing that I need to say, and I think it might be the most important thing in this episode, you should not be navigating this alone. When your partner steps back from a difficult conversation with their own family and leaves you to figure it out, whether out of conflict avoidance, loyalty, or just purely not knowing how to act, it costs you something, even if you don't mean for it to. Because what you feel in that conversation is not just frustration at the way that the conversation go. You feel it with your partner too. Like you were standing at a border and they let you go alone. Your partner is your bridge to their family, just as you are their bridge to your family. Not a shield, not a spokesperson, but an ambassador. Someone who stands beside you and says, we have talked about this and this is where we are. And this is where I think the deeper truth of wedding planning lives. It is not just a planning exercise. It is one of the first real dynamic tests of your marriage. It is one of the first real tests of a dynamic that will define your marriage. Because the preview is in how you guys show up for each other in a tense conversation with a parent or in-law. That is the two of you learning how to be a unit. Learning who goes in, learning who goes in which direction when things get hard. There is a metaphor that I keep coming back to when I think about all of this. When you get married, you are not just joining a family, you are founding one. You are building a new country where it's on constitution, it's on values, it's on rules, it's on way of doing things. Some of it will look like the countries you both come from. Some of it will look completely different. And that difference is not a betrayal. It can feel like one, but it is not. It is just what it means to build something new. Wedding planning is often the first time that you present that constitution to the world. And the people who love you, your parents, your family, your friends, the people who have known you for your whole life, they are meeting your country for the first time. Some of them will be excited, some of them will grieve a little because something is shifting. Your primary loyalty is moving, and that is real. And that, I think, is something worth remembering the next time a conversation gets heavy. The person across from you is not just reacting to your guest list. They're quietly reckoning with what it means to love someone who is becoming something new. So if I could offer you one thing to carry into hard conversation between now and your wedding day, it would be this. Before you negotiate the decision, name the expectation, yours and theirs. Not to win, not to prove a point, but so that the real conversation, the one about role, about belonging, and what the day actually means for everyone in the room can actually happen. Because that conversation is worth having. Your marriage is worth starting with that much honesty. Thank you so much for spending time with me. If this episode resonated, I would love for you to share it with someone who is in the middle of planning their wedding. And if you have not yet, please subscribe. I will talk to you again next week.